Sonic the Hedgehog 3. If you've seen my previous Sonic movie reviews, you'll know that I liked them, but I had some pretty big grievances with how they went about the movies, particularly with the humans and the pop culture references, and oh my gosh, the product placement, particularly in the first movie, was just horrendous. And there's just a lot of other things that I thought could have been done better, but overall I thought the first one was good and the second one was just a little bit better, although maybe went a little too hard on some of the human stuff. But if you remember those reviews, you'll also remember that I'm a huge fan of Sonic Adventure 2. That's really what got me into Sonic, besides just looking over the shoulder of my friend who had a Genesis while he played Sonic. When I got Sonic Adventure 2 Battle for the GameCube, that's when I really had a taste of Sonic's style of gameplay and also was introduced to Shadow the Hedgehog. I am an unapologetic Sonic Adventure 2 fanboy. My 13-year-old self would go to war for that game until it was replaced in my heart with Twilight Princess. That's a whole nother discussion. But needless to say, that game, Sonic Adventure 2 Battle specifically, was such a huge part of my preteen years. The battle between Sonic and Shadow meant a lot to me, horribly dubbed smack talk and all. A fake hedgehog? Faker? Ha! You're the fake around here. I'll make you eat those words. So with that background exposition, you could probably guess that my hype for Sonic 3, once we got out of Sonic 2, was pretty high. Or at least as high as it can be for what I thought were fairly mediocre movies. I know that's not a very popular thing to say about the Sonic movies, and mediocre doesn't mean it's bad, it just means it's okay, and there's nothing wrong with that. And I can find enjoyment, like good enjoyment, out of mediocre movies. But that's what I thought Sonic 1 and Sonic 2 were like, although Sonic 2 was better. So I didn't have high hopes for Sonic 3 going into it, but I still was excited to see my boy Shadow and possibly be the plot points that were in Sonic Adventure 2. That being said, before we go into the review, I should say, I'm going to try to avoid plot points from both Sonic Adventure 2 and Sonic 3 in this initial part of the review, just to make sure that everyone is spoiler-free going into Sonic 3, or I guess if they go back and play Sonic Adventure 2. My prayer, though, going into this was that Sonic 3 could potentially be better than the other two, just hoping that they learn from the mistakes, learn from some of the critiques that people had, and, you know, try to improve on it. I know it's just a Sonic movie. I mean, it's not like this is peak writing to begin with, no offense, Sonic fans, but I still felt there was room to improve in terms of making a great movie. And so I hoped, didn't have high expectations, but I hoped that Sonic 3 could potentially be that great movie. And it was a good movie. It was good. I'd say it's beyond mediocre. Sonic 3 is a good movie. Now, from a fanboy standpoint, it was a freaking awesome movie. The little boy in me who loves Sonic Adventure 2 just couldn't fathom what I was seeing on screen at a certain point in the movie. It may have taken a while to get to that point, although there was definitely references throughout. There's a specific scene in the movie toward, well, I won't say when, but there's a specific scene that just really got me emotional from a nostalgic, you know, oh my gosh, I understood this reference so hard type of moment. And so from a fanboy standpoint, I have to say it was pretty awesome. But I can be objective. I could take that part away and just look at it for what it is as pure cinema. Unfortunately, it is not pure cinema. It is good cinema. It is a fun movie that, while won't blow anyone away with its deep emotional dialogue, is entertaining, funny, has a somewhat emotional backstory for this new character, Shadow, and I think a lot of audiences will find parts they can enjoy about it. There's definitely parts where you're grown if you're not expecting it, or if you're not accustomed to it. For example, the pop culture references are aplenty. They took the criticisms from the previous movies and doubled down on it. It's like, oh, you didn't like the pop culture references? Well, too bad, we're putting a lot more into it. And actually, now they say that, maybe they actually got good feedback from that. Maybe it was just me who didn't like all the pop culture references. But, you know, they really doubled down on that. And they found kind of fun ways to bring in all sorts of IPs into this Sonic movie. But it's not just that would drive someone annoyed. It's also, you know, just how campy some of the dialogue can be, how just over-the-top edgy Shadow can be at some times. Look, it's not like Shadow is saying, I'm gonna kill every last one of them. Or, well, I guess maybe he does say something like that at one point. But it's more so that he just is trying so hard to be edgy and hatred-filled. There's... I don't know if I should say this line, if it's a spoiler or not. Probably everything is, so I'll save it for spoiler talk. But there's just one specific line that just had me groan audibly. I mean, luckily there was no one in the row with me, but I was just like, what? Why did they have that in? What were they thinking? You know, someone in high school is gonna do like a theatrical monologue of that quote. But despite those small grievances that I was just mentioning that people could find annoying, there's still a lot of good in here. The action is pretty good, albeit not as much as I would like. I felt that the conversation between Sonic and Shadow, there could have been a little bit more, although I can understand not wanting to overfill the movie with that kind of stuff. Still, I would have liked at least one more Sonic v Shadow scene. Still, I would have liked at least one more Sonic v Shadow scene, maybe towards the middle or something like that, but regardless, it was very action-packed. The comedy this time around, I thought, was pretty good. It had me laughing quite a bit. And I don't know if it's because they kind of went away from the human focus. You know, in Sonic 2, they had at least two dubious scenes, in my opinion, that were supposed to be hilarious, fun scenes, but I didn't like them, and I thought very cringeworthy, and just took away from the movie for me big time. This time, however, there is kind of one scene that's like that, and it's still a little cringy and feels out of place in the movie, but it's not terrible, and I could let it slide because it still moves the plot along fairly well. The rest of the comedy is Sonic and, of course, Robotnik. You know, well, Sonic, Team Sonic, and then Robotnik. They really just went full ham on that, particularly with Robotnik. I don't know if it was in Jim Carrey's contract or not, but he said, I need to carry this film comedically or I'm not coming back. And he kind of did that in the second one, but really it took off in this movie for various reasons that I think would be considered spoilery, so I'm not going to say them, but it is pretty funny to see Jim in his element once again, just kind of having free reign on how his character reacts. You can see a lot of his previous roles in his Robotnik. I mean, Grinch, Ace Ventura, Dumb and Dumber. You know, it's just facial expressions and mannerisms that are coming back in this one. But it's all in good fun, and it's really a performance, a comedic performance for the ages. Well, in terms of video game adaptations. But I guess I should mention Keanu Reeves' Shadow. I thought it was good casting. I had my own picks for who I would like Shadow to be. but I did think Keanu Reeves would be a good choice. He didn't play it as well as I thought he would. I know, that's quite critical, I'm sorry. Maybe I was overthinking it, but I don't know, I thought he'd have a little more character in his voice. It sounded too much just like Keanu Reeves to me, you know? Like he was just playing himself instead of playing a red and black, very fast hedgehog. Gotta get into character for that. I guess what I'm trying to say, he's definitely playing a character. However, it just, I don't know. To me, it felt too much like Keanu and less like a new character. But, you know, what is he supposed to put on this brand new performance for Shadow? No, I don't. I'm not even saying he called it in or anything like that. I think he definitely, you know, played the part, tried to do its due diligence, but I just felt it was a little static at times. Even for Shadow, who is supposed to be a not as emotional, very much edgelord type. Overall, I think he did do a good job. I know I sounded very harsh, but I think in the end it was good casting. It probably could have been better, but I think he did a good job. And you know what? Thinking about how it all ends, I think he warms up to it in the end, and I think it really works out. As for Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles, they played pretty well. There's kind of this theme of teamwork going on, and I like that idea and wish they would have played with it more. But at the very beginning, they go around, you know, taking care of some business as a team, and it felt like it felt very natural. It felt that they were friends, even if they didn't want to agree with it sometimes. Well, particularly Knuckles. But I think that at the end they showed that they were a good team, and that theme is brought up all the way to the very end. I guess let's talk about Grandpa Robotnik. He was actually a really good villain in terms of kind of being a more evil or a more chaotic Dr. Robotnik. That being said, you know, I wish there was more of Shadow in it all. They focus a little too much on Robotnik, Grandpa and Grandson Robotnik, and not on Shadow as much as I'd like. The backstory was pretty good. Maria looked a little older than I thought she'd be, but you know, it's fine. But yeah, I felt like that moment didn't get as much spotlight as I thought it should. Although it was a decent scene. I don't know. I felt like there just should have been more Shadow and maybe less of the Robotniks, but maybe that's just me. It's very similar to how they did Knuckles in Sonic 2, where he has a motive, you know, he has a conflict with Sonic, and then it gets resolved, you know. Forgive me if you find that spoiler. Shadow is kind of the same way in Sonic 3, and then he kind of takes a back seat to everyone else. And I don't know, I feel like it would have been nicer to have more from Shadow himself, instead of just kind of shoehorning it at the end. Well, in the beginning and then at the end. But, you know, there's only so much you can do in a relatively short runtime, and they have a pretty big cast at this point. So working with the cast that they have and making sure they get everybody a time to shine, I guess was important in their mind. So overall, I thought it was a great continuation of the Sonic movie franchise, and that each movie just gets better over time. To me, Sonic 3 is the best one, is a good movie, and whether you're a fan of Sonic Adventure 2, a fan of Sonic in general, or if you're just someone who wants to go see a fun comedic movie that has a good amount of action in it, it's a highly recommend. I mean, go see it. I think you'll have a good time, particularly if you like Jim Carrey type comedy. He just is really in his element, as always. One other thing I wanted to note before we go into spoilers is I thought the message, the theme of the movie was something that a lot of people can find relatable. Believing in the good that's in yourself, believing that you'll eventually make the right choice, no matter how many wrong choices you've made, and that you can change, those types of things. I know that a lot of them are overdone cliches, but particularly changing yourself, I think that is a message that no matter how many times you hear it or see it in media or someone tells you, it's still true. You can change, no matter what you've done. Some things require consequences, obviously, but you can change. And I got a little emotional from that, or maybe it was because of the other thing that I saw I was still getting emotional from. And then there's the whole teamwork thing that I may have mentioned earlier. It's kind of a underlining theme throughout. I wish they would have hit on it a little bit harder throughout the movie instead of just kind of at the end. But regardless, it still was nice to see. It's nice to see Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles dynamic at this point in Sonic 3. I think that's all I want to say for the non-spoiler stuff. There's just so much I want to say in the spoilers, so forgive me if I go on a few rants here. But if you are trying to keep yourself safe from spoilers, click away from the video, skip ahead to whatever time I put on screen to see the final conclusion. But we are getting into spoilers now. First off, let me talk about that emotional, nostalgic part for me. You probably already guessed it, but it is the moment where both Shadow and Sonic transform into their, I'm sorry, I don't know the actual word for this. Their chaos modes, their Super Saiyan modes, and then you have the Live and Learn remix playing, and it is just so hype to have that right there and then in the movie theater on the big screen. Something that I thought would never happen, particularly after watching the first two movies where there were some jingles here and there, but it really wasn't as prominent to have those music tracks. Not so in this case. I mean, yes, it's a different arrangement, but it's clearly Live and Learn, and they have the Crush 40 vocals and a bit of the guitar in there as well. It is fantastic. And so they had that moment, right? And then they cut away from it and was like, well, that's a shame that was the only part of it, but not even then. Even then, I was still thinking like, man, that was so great, so awesome, so glad we got that. But they weren't done, because once they cut back to Sonic and Shadow trying to save the day, defeating that whole robot armada, the song continues to play, and it's still as epic, and it's just everything I ever wanted. Oh, so good. Oh, I was crying, man. I couldn't stop the happy tears from flowing. Yeah, I mean, I'm glad no one else was sitting by me, because they would have heard me sobbing like a baby. It was amazing, and I'm so glad I could be there for that in the movie theater. And yeah, if it was my fanboy self, I would say that was an amazing movie, the best movie ever. Maybe I wouldn't say the best movie ever. I think I can control myself that much. But that scene was just so incredible. Absolutely loved it. That being all said, there were some more plot points from the game, Sonic Adventure 2, that I kind of wished were transferred over to this one. But I understand in a movie there's only so much you could put in. And then another plot point that I was just kind of hoping for, but I guess maybe it would have been ridiculous, is to have the actual ultimate life form, the lizard thing, a bio lizard, whatever they called it. I mean, I thought it would have been fun just to have that as the actual ultimate life form, just how it is in Sonic Adventure 2. Maybe it would have been a tougher pull for a movie to do, particularly when it just kind of comes out of left field in the game itself. But I still thought it would have been really fun and could have worked. But at least they had the giant cannon. I think that was a pretty neat reference to have and connect between the movie and the game. And they even cut part of the moon off, which was definitely a reference. There's a lot of references, if you compare the two, whether intentional or not, but there's a lot of that kind of stuff. So, talking about some of the less than ideal parts that I just didn't want to say in the non-spoiler section. The line that made me audibly groan was, we got some avocados in the crab. Do you want some crab guac? Well, revenge guac. More like revenge guac. Oh, brother. Who says that? I know it's supposed to be ridiculous, but the character is taking himself very seriously when he says that. And I don't know, I just hated it. Revenge guac. Yeah, there was just some lines like that I wasn't too keen on. Also, another thing that I thought was just funny, but it just, I don't know, almost like showing that they really don't care, is when they're in the Chow Garden Cafe in Tokyo, which was, I guess, it's kind of a fun way to have the Chow in there without actually bringing Chow into the game, or into the movie, unfortunately. I mean, I would have liked to actually have Chow, but whatever. But then you have the commander of Gun there, just randomly, "Hello, Sonic, thanks for meeting me." And it's supposed to be funny, right? Just a strange place to meet up. I don't know, but I want to take the movie seriously and not just as this admittedly cash grabby movie. But whatever, it's fine. It's not that big of a deal. I mean, how serious can you make it? They already know they're going ham with all the pop culture references and the emo shadow. It is what it is. I didn't let it bother me too much. The dance scene with Jim Carrey and himself was really elaborate, although completely unneeded. I guess they were just really feeling themselves as they were trying to steal the key card. It kind of carries on, I believe, from the second movie. Did it? Oh, maybe it was in the first movie too. I guess there just needs to be an obligatory dance scene for Robotnik. But this time he had a dance partner, and it was well choreographed and pretty funny. And so I kind of forgive it for that, but also it's just so silly. I mean, yeah, you can only take yourself seriously so much, right? In this kind of movie. But I'm sure that's someone's favorite scene, and that's fine. That's good. I liked it, from a comedy standpoint. Okay, so now that we've got that out of the way, I think that's all the major discussion I want to talk about. Let's talk about the end credit scenes. First off, the very last credit scene. Shadow's still alive. Hooray! Pretty obvious, but I thought it would have been would have been bold for them to kind of get rid of Shadow after that one movie. Well, I mean, bold per se, easy, I guess more so. You had a good excuse just to one and done him, but it seems like Shadow will be back in some capacity. Whether that ends up being Sonic 4 or a series like Knuckles had. Oh man. Can I just say, while the punchline where Knuckles hid the Master Emerald is funny, it just took away from all the seriousness of that moment. It's a great thing for the people who watch the series, the Knuckles series, because I'm pretty sure that guy is there in that series, but and he was in the previous movies as well, but more so in the series. I don't know. When I had heard Knuckles had hid the Master Emerald, and he's kind of taken his role as its guardian seriously, I thought, well, I was proud of the movie. It's like, hey, we're actually, trying our best here, trying to make it a good story with some lore and things like that. But no, he just gave it to some schmo in the original hometown. And what was it, Minnesota? I can't remember. Montana? Can't remember. And he's playing hockey with it. I don't know. I just definitely funny, but it kind of took away from it all. A nitpick again, but so we had that final scene, a final end credit scene with Shadow coming back. I can't help but wonder if Robotnik is going to be in the same boat. Not that he has the same invincibility as Shadow seems to have, but he's come back from the dead a couple times, or so it seems. But obviously, what gives you pause in saying he won't be back is the fact that the mid-credit scene, the one that people are going to be talking about more, has an armada of Metal Sonics. And in Sonic lore, or at least the one that I'm aware of, Robotnik was the one who made Metal Sonic. And I don't think I've ever seen, or maybe there was an army of Metal Sonic, I can't remember. But point is, if Metal Sonic's there, you would expect Robotnik to be there. Now, a theory I had as I was thinking just this morning, and I was on my run, it could be that in order to let Jim Carrey kind of retire his character but keep Robotnik there, they would let his character die, but then bring in an alternate Robotnik from some other dimension and have him, it'd be like a new comedic actor play Robotnik, like a Will Ferrell or something, I don't know. That's only if Jim Carrey doesn't want to do it. I think Jim Carrey has all the right to agree or disagree to this, and they'll go with it, they'll roll with the punches. But I find it hard to believe Robotnik wouldn't be in Sonic the Hedgehog 4 if Metal Sonic is going to play a prime role in that. Now, obviously, dimension hopping is kind of a stretch. I have no idea if that's the case. But it just seemed to be an option, considering we don't know where they came from, and we get the biggest reveal of all, Amy Rose. Now, Amy Rose seems to not be lost or unsure where she is, rather almost, on a mission to take down these Metal Sonics in some way. Whether that be time travel, world traveling, or dimension hopping, she certainly has a task at hand and is not just, stuck on this world, or at least stuck on the world the same way Sonic was. So yes, Amy Rose will be in the next Sonic movie. So glad to have her here. I mean, Amy has kind of been this mixed character for me. On the one hand, I appreciate the cute pink hedgehog, but on the other hand, I along with some of the fan base, have found her annoying. But I think this version of Amy will be a lot less clingy, a lot less whiny, and more so of her own character. I personally would love there to still be the whole she has a crush on Sonic thing to be there, because that could be a fun dynamic see play on the screen. But maybe they want to avoid that entirely. I don't know. I guess one worry is that, and forgive me for saying this, but my one worry is that they try to make her a girl boss. You know, just kind of, don't talk to me, Sonic, I'm too cool for you. Or, you know, that kind of stuff, and totally erase her character. There's a fine line between trying to correct the course and just overcorrecting. You know, trying to make something fit more with what the audience wants to see, and then just completely derailing it to become something that nobody really asked for. But I have hope that they will do her right. And I thought she looked really cool with, I think she had a jacket, like a hood on, and swinging her hammer around to really destroy some of the Metal Sonics. I can't wait to see who plays her. And I don't know if they've confirmed who her voice actress is, if she even had one. And then, how Sonic 4 will go. I think we have to wait till 2027, which all things considering, it's not too long. 3 years? Less than? Less than 3 years, because I think it was anticipated like spring 2027. So it's really only like 2 years. But yeah, that should be pretty exciting to see. The cast just keeps on growing, and eventually we'll get to the point where we're running out of characters to tease in these end credit scenes. What's the next one gonna be? Froggy? When they reveal Big the Cat in the end credit scenes, you'll know that's when they've started running out of ideas. Scraping the bottom of the barrel. Overall, I had a great time. My inner fanboy was incredibly satisfied, and my movie critic side was at least pleased. Thought it was a good movie, And that's more than I can say for the first one, at least. and probably more than I can say for the second one. So I think they made improvements, and I hope they take these, or some of my critiques, and run with it into the fourth movie, because there is indeed a fourth one coming in 2027. So please look forward to that. Remember to stay to the very end, just kind of what you had to do with these types of movies, alright? You movie newbies. It's still surreal to me to think that Sonic Adventure 2 made it onto the movie theater, even though it's not a direct adaptation of that. It's still an original film, but it takes a lot of inspiration from it. And so it's surreal to see some of that on the big screen. And with that teenage dream done, now I'm waiting for Twilight Princess to get on the big screen. When is it happening, Nintendo? First, we gotta get the vanilla Legend of Zelda movie, and then we can move on to Twilight Princess. Maybe we'll have Wind Waker or like Ocarina of Time or something in between, but we gotta get to Twilight Princess. That's when you're gonna see the box office hit that it could be. Oh, I can't wait. When they play Midna's Lament on the big screen, I will be wailing! And then they'll kick me out of the movie theater. Not the first time. Hope you all enjoy Sonic 3. Please let me know in the comments what you think about the movie, your review if you will, and I hope you all have a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and a Happy New Year. Don't know if I'll have another video out before then, but I definitely will have my Game of the Year 2024 Nintendo Game of the Year video in January, like I usually do, because I just am playing games until the very end of the year. And we'll have that out next month. And so until then, see you later.